I think if there is a standout disappointment of this opening stretch, and I think was crystallized in this game, it's Nick Nurse. I think there are excuses for different players. I think you can certainly look at how new the roster is and say, oh, there's a lack of familiarity. Guys aren't gelling. They don't have Joel Embiid. He's a central point of the offense and the defense and blah, 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 blah. But, to some degree, you knew coming into this season more than ever, more than any season in recent history, certainly more than last season, Joel was going to be scaled back. And you needed to have a plan for whatever you were going to do. They go out, they sign Andre Drummond, they get athletic wings, they get Paul George. And you can't fault Nick Nurse for not having Paul George in the first, whatever it was, 4 games of the season, 5 games of the season. I can't even count anymore. I'm like Paul George at the end of a game. I don't know the score at this point. But point being, you had, at least on a roster level, some semblance of a plan. You had the concept of a plan coming into the year. And what they've done with it is absolutely nothing. They are running uninspired, uncreative, one action type offense where they go through one dribble handoff. You see if the guy who has the ball can turn the corner. And if he can't, well, let's swing it around the perimeter and try it again in a couple seconds.
Let's see if Caleb Martin can take his defender off the bounce.
There's just nothing happening. And even early in this game where they were competitive, really a lot of it came down to moments of individual brilliance from Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. And I think where I am probably most concerned or most critical, probably a better way of putting it, with Nick Nurse right away is if you go out and you say, all right, we have all these chemistry problems. It's hard to get everyone acclimated. It's hard for people to find familiarity. You can't just be shuffling through 800 different lineups a game and throwing stuff at the wall. You have to develop some semblance of a consistent rotation, and you have to put lineups on the floor that on paper are being set up to succeed, right? So I'll give you a great example. We know right now Gershon Yabusele is going to have to play minutes at center, right? Like they don't trust Bona. Drummond is not up to the task of playing as many minutes as they need him to. So you need to get productive minutes out of Yabu. Yabusele in the second half is playing in a lineup where he is already size limited. He struggles with rim protection and center duties. And he's on the floor with Maxey, Lowry, and Eric Gordon at the same time. That's just stupid. It's stupid on paper. It didn't work, and it was never going to work. It's really pretty simple. If you want to get a lot of shooting and have to put small guys on the floor, put the bigger guy in the front court along with them. If you're going to play Yabusele, and again, they have to, maybe you play bigger and more athletic so that he is not getting overwhelmed at the rim as both a rim protector and a rebound. Like, this is basic stuff. This is like high school coach level stuff. You line them up and say, hey, that guy's not tall enough at center. We need to help him out. That's something that somebody could walk into a gym and just say, oh, I can assemble a lineup that makes more sense than that. So between the structural stuff, between the just like, okay, go roll the ball out and figure it out, Tyrese and Paul, with the offensive stuff, and Tyrese Maxey being relegated to standing in the corner for, minutes at a time, doing basically nothing on offense. I don't know what his plan is right now, but it hasn't been a good one.
Yeah, I agree with every word that you just said. It really is frustrating because we spent so much time being like, all right, here are Yabusele's limitations. You have to put him out there. If it's going to work, it has to be out there with like apex wing types. And he's out there with 3 guys who don't clear the, Kyle Neubeck height test. And then the offense is really the one that it's driving me insane. Because it really is, like you said, one action, a pick and roll, or a dribble handoff. That doesn't work because every team just blitzes Tyrese. It works every now and then when Paul's on the court because you have to be a little more judicious about blitzing Tyrese. But for the most part, like for much of that third quarter, especially the second half when Paul George was on the bench, it doesn't work. It just wastes time. and then you swing it over to Kelly Oubre or Caleb Martin or someone else who's just not going to do anything with the ball. And next thing you know, you're in late clock and nobody, legitimately nobody, has moved at all in like 10 seconds of game action. They're all just planted in their spot. It's infuriating. And look, I get the hand he's dealt isn't great. Like, Kelly is just making mistakes left and right. Caleb Martin can't shoot right now. Kelly can't shoot right now. There's a whole bunch of problems. But man, just try something. Just try something so I don't have to watch this again. It was nice in the first half because it's not even like there's all that much great movement, but like Tyrese had some good moments. Paul George had some good moments. At the very least, those two were carrying you, even if the role players weren't doing anything. But just watching it devolve into nothing, no movement, no creativity, no actions, nothing in the third quarter. And for that game to get out of hand, and look, you thought they salvaged it because, right, the Clippers ran out to that big lead early on in the third quarter. Sixers came back, answered with a 7-0 run. Maybe the only time in the game that the role players looked like they were actually doing anything offensively. And then immediately it was a 16-2 run. The game was never close. Some nonsense, nice minutes from Murky later. And we're going to have to talk about that because you have to find something to cling to. That was a bad, bad game.
For as many times that I've talked about the Brooklyn Nets, the Detroit Pistons, and the Portland Trailblazers and saying these basketball teams are really bad, they're awful, they stink. Well, the Sixers are right there with them right now, and it's very difficult to watch this basketball team in the moment. As you sit there and watch it, you guys laid it out perfectly, and as you sit there and watch it, and you're just saying, okay, all right, you know what's going to happen as the ball swings to Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre, and it's going to be 4 seconds left on the shot clock, and they have to figure out something to do. Put the ball down on the floor, cradle the ball, put your head down like a running back, and try to get a shot off before the shot clock goes off. And that's their late clock offense because nothing is happening except for the dribble handoff and just nonsense thereafter. And it really is difficult to watch, especially when we have to stay up late at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night and have to take a peek at it. And this is not good. I've defended Nick Nurse and said that, hey, give them time to let these guys come back and give them an opportunity. It's still early in the season, but you're absolutely right. It's not just them anymore. It's a combination of everybody, and he's the one in charge to find the right way to get this thing to work. And Joel Embiid will be back when Joel Embiid will be back. But like he says, we have to figure out how to get it done with these particular players right now. And he's struggling. He's having a tough time in doing that and figuring it out. And the lineups are bad. The offense is not good. The defense is not helping it out. And then you find yourself, as Derek pointed out, on the 16-2 run late where you thought you might be in the game, tied at 51 at the half. You thought you might be in the game, and now this is out of hand. And then you have absolutely no faith, even with an entire fourth quarter remaining, that they can come back at all being down 16 points. You have no belief whatsoever in this basketball team to string anything together to find a way to get back into it, give themselves hope to win this basketball game. And that's where they are right now. And it doesn't look good now. It's not gonna give anybody any faith going against the Lakers on Friday. And certainly when they come home later in the week on Sunday, taking on the Charlotte Hornets. This is a bad product right now. And it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better anytime soon. Of course, when Embiid comes back, but then they're going to have to figure out how to work off of him and integrate themselves with him when he's on the floor and playing against a good team next week back here in Philadelphia.
And that's here's the other thing tonight. That wasn't even a very good team that they played, right? We keep talking about you got to pick up some of these because eventually you're going to play good teams and you're just going to get buzzsawed, right? And that might be the case. Like, even if Joel Embiid comes back, you pick up wins against the Clippers of the world and some of those types of teams. But the teams look at Phoenix right now, who they just played the other night. Phoenix is really good right now. Oklahoma City, when you play a team like that, you are in deep trouble. You play Boston, deep trouble. Cleveland, big trouble. There are a lot of teams that are humming along to start the season that you're going to run into at some point. And the Sixers have been fortunate in that the East has generally started slow. It's been Cleveland, Boston, and then big gap between those two teams and everybody else. But even with I guess you're thankful for that, but it's hard to be thankful, and it's hard to look at, oh, Milwaukee's struggling, the Knicks are struggling, Orlando petered off after a good start. You can't even be that happy about it, because not only are you losing, you just don't look like a coherent team right now. And then you're going to drop in the guy who's going to have the most touches, who you're going to run the offense through. Like, if they will get better, they will be more talented. And that's all true with Joel Embiid. But all this stuff that we're seeing with, a lack of synergy, confusion over lineups, and the inconsistency that they're dealing with, that's going to get worse before it gets better, right? And, Joel, as much as we all respect his contributions and what he brings to the table, one of his biggest problems is the turnovers and the carelessness with the ball. And that was their big problem without him in the first half tonight. They're throwing passes off a guy's shins from 3 feet away. They're blatantly miscommunicating. Andre Drummond and Tyrese Maxey are trying to hook up on, tough pocket passes behind defenders, low passes to Drummond. Like, there's no knowledge that they're playing with of their personnel and their teammates. There's no help from the structure and the coaching staff to get them going. It's either Tyrese figure it out or PG figure it out, or otherwise they're kind of cooked. And that is just a really sad state of affairs for a team that likes to think it has a lot of talent, likes to think it has a high-level head coach. Well, I want to see it. Like, you can be labeled this, and we can all say Nick Nurse won a title with the Raptors. We respect his experimentation. We respect the things that he's done defensively at times in his career. The results are what they have deserved for bad process so far.
Yeah, and for you to come out and say the person you're most disappointed with is Nick. Look, Kelly and Andre are out there making Shackton highlights every game.
Yeah.
So for you to come out there and say that of all the people, the coach is the one, and the coach, the championship coach, the one that we all praised when they hired him. And look, I still think he's a good coach, but I remember when he was hired, you going like, that Toronto offense didn't look all that imaginative. Now, then again, they all only had like 6'8" wings who could barely dribble and no shooters. So let's see what he does here. And to be honest, right now, they mostly have either wings who can't shoot or short guys. So, like, again, it's imperfect, but there's just not, he's got such a reputation as a creative coach. And defensively, I certainly think that is warranted and merited. But man, I would just love to see a little more offensively. And look, I don't necessarily know all of the answers, because like we said, there's fatal fundamental flaws with this roster right now. But man, just try something. There's so little I cannot stress how little movement there is. And man, when you're static like that and you don't have shooting and you don't have anyone who can really force an advantage and you only have like 1.5 players who can dribble, it's just an ugly combo. It's a real ugly combo.
We all silly like the mayor.